Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Thursday. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ. President Donald Trump leaving Washington, D.C. today and heading south to Texas.
Along the Rio Grande, he met with border station employees. But as day 20 of the shutdown comes to a close, so do the hopes of many federal workers needing a paycheck.
Tomorrow, this shutdown will tie with the 1995-1996 shutdown when Bill Clinton was president as the longest in history.
CBS's Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
President Trump brought his battle over the wall to the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas on Thursday.
A lot of the crime in our country is caused by what's coming through here.
The president said miles of open border allow drug and human traffickers to come and go as they please.
The problem is they go to the barrier, that's it, but now they go around the barrier. So when you fill up the gaps, it's going to be a much different day.
With the standoff between the president and Democratic leaders only intensifying, the question now, will the president declare a national emergency to try and sidestep Congress and fund a wall?
Are you closer to declaring an emergency?
We are. I would like to look at broader. I think we can do this quickly because this is common sense. And it's not expensive.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham released a statement saying it's now time for the president to use emergency powers. This after Senator Graham's efforts to forge a deal seemed to fall apart on Thursday.
I just don't see a pathway forward.
Why are you rejecting it at the expense of the health, safety, and well-being of the American people?
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi criticized Republicans for rejecting Democratic funding bills that would reopen government agencies currently closed.
To take an oath to the Constitution or an oath to Donald Trump.
On Friday, 800,000 federal workers face missing their first paycheck. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Tonight, the Senate voted to provide back pay for impacted workers when the shutdown ends. The House is expected to vote on it Friday.
Here in Montana, Senator Scott Sayles' proposal to send $8 million of Montana money to fund the border wall, drawing ire from Governor Steve Bullock. Previously, Sayles acknowledged that Governor Bullock might not agree and could veto the measure, but said he still wants to pursue it. Well, today, Governor Bullock, a Democrat, made it clear that he is not on board for spending state money on a border wall. Bullock told reporters at the Capitol he has plenty of respect for Senator Sayles and complimented him for running the Senate with great integrity and transparency. But he said it's puzzling that Sayles would propose spending state money on a construction project in California when he's rarely supported infrastructure investments here in Montana. Sayles, a Republican from Bozeman, told MTN News Wednesday he believes Montanans support Trump's proposed border wall. He said $8 million would just be Montana's tiny share of the cost to help get the project going and maybe break a stalemate that has shut down the federal government. Bullock, however, said $8 million can do a lot of good if it stays in Montana.
$8 million is significant. $8 million is a third of the costs of what the state share of Medicaid will be. $8 million can do incredible work for local infrastructure in communities all across our state. So I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to use Montana taxpayer dollars on federal projects.
Sayles' proposal has not yet been introduced.
For years, the problem just kept getting worse. Children in Montana needing a safe place to live for a night, for a month, or forever.
And although the number of children in foster care is beginning to level off, finding families to open their hearts and homes to a child in need is still a very big challenge. Tonight, Jill Valley takes a look at programs that take the fear out of fostering.
Maddox just spent Christmas with the people he calls Mom and Dad. The toddler quickly became part of the Keller family, who made the decision to be a foster family. Maddox has been with them for about 6 months.
Just being a part of our family, bringing them into what we do and who we are. I mean, we're not flashy, we're not fancy, but we love each other deeply. And so to give a child an opportunity to witness that was awesome.
I'll be here. But the Kellers didn't make the decision to foster without a lot of careful thought and prayer, and with the help of a statewide organization called Child Bridge.
We are a faith-based nonprofit, and so where we go and we seek families is in the churches.
Tricia Collins is the regional director for ChildBridge, overseeing 4 counties in western Montana, finding families to foster children, and then providing those parents with the resources to back them up.
We have 3 different support groups in this area, but we have about 12 to 15 of them around the state. And so we don't just say, come do this and good luck with that. We say, let me tell you about it. And we walk alongside the families through every step of the process.
I have every resource I could possibly need, either with the state or with ChildBridge. And so I'm not alone in this journey. We're not alone in this journey.
But finding families willing or brave enough to open their hearts and homes to a child is just one of the hurdles facing social workers.
I think it's fear of the unknown. They just have never done it. They've maybe heard some scary story from a friend of a friend. And so it's just that fear of the unknown. My own husband said it was the weird factor. He was afraid it was a weird thing until the moment the child arrived on our doorstep, and he said it was no longer weird. It was just a child in need of help.
The number of children entering foster care in Montana is stabilizing. It saw an annual growth decrease from 19% to 13% over the past couple of years. And so far in fiscal year 2019, this trend has continued. And that is good news. Montana DPHHS Director Sheila Hogan says there are many factors that contribute to improving numbers, including investments in the safety, permanency, and well-being of children are having an impact. Recently launched target initiatives such as the First Years Initiative, as well as new CFSD leadership, have also put us on the right path. The state tells me 65% of the kids in foster care will be reunited with their biological parents. Plus, the state is one of the leaders in what is called kinship placements, where children are placed with family members for care. There are 3,900 children in need of kinship placements or a foster home right now in Montana. That number may seem high, but it's part of a downward trend that seems to show these new programs are working, including getting drug-addicted parents some treatment more quickly.
I am absolutely encouraged. There was a definite scary time where numbers were increasing drastically, and we had to really just kind of grasp at every straw to try to get it under control. But our community responses and our management levels higher up and at the state level, our governor, everybody has been working on these teams to try to get a better understanding of what we need to do as a state.
Organizations like ChildBridge are a crucial part of an effort to care for Montana's youth. For Tricia, it's not just a job. She believes in this because she lived it.
I was in foster care myself as a young teen. I had suffered extreme abuse and neglect at the hands of my parents, and a family stepped into what was a very messy and angry teenager and invited me into their home and really changed the whole trajectory of my life. And then my husband and I did the same for another child into our family, and she has since become our daughter.
In Missoula, Jill Valley, MTN News.
Thanks, Jill. Now, ChildBridge celebrated about 100 adoptions last year.
And ChildBridge also operates here in Billings for children in our region. That organization is always grateful for both volunteers and financial donations.
Well, the century-old St. Francis School in downtown Billings will likely have a new owner and some potential growth around it. Harrison Fagg, who developed the granite tower just across the street, and his son, Russ, who's a former Billings district judge, plan to purchase the building. Russ Fagg telling Q2 Today there is a lot of history and a lot of memories in the walls of the old school, which is why his plans are to keep it as is. Despite needing a few updates and repairs on the exterior, they don't plan on any major changes. The plan is to leave the rooms inside as office space, but Fagg says they are also open to buyers if someone was interested in owning some space inside.
Well, the building's 100 years old, and we think it's a really nice looking building. It's a really solid building. There's not a crack in the foundation, and so God willing, we can have this building around for another 100 or 200 years.
As for the rest of the half-a-block lot, Fagg says their initial ideas include either condos or apartments with underground parking.
The man who was found guilty of murdering former Bighorn County Sheriff William Joy is set to learn his fate tomorrow. Back on June 10th, 58-year-old Donald Gray Jr. approached Joy at knife point at a post office on the west end of Billings. He then forced Joy to drive him away from the building, continuing to threaten him with a knife. When Joy tried to signal for help near Lewis and Clark Middle School, Gray stabbed him to death. Prosecutors previously had hoped for life in prison.
Northern Cheyenne tribal members held a vote for a new president and vice president in a special election earlier today.
Renalia Whitman Pena won the election. Winfield Russell will serve as the vice president. The winners will face the seats left open by Jace Kilsback, who resigned as president in October, and Conrad Fisher, who resigned as vice president.
Kilsback stated in a letter that he resigned because of clashes with the legislative branch. Fisher cited health reasons for his resignation. Pena and Russell will serve out the terms, which expire in November of 2020.
All right, time to turn our attention to the weather. We've been enjoying some pretty mild weather around here. Big difference over in Europe. They're dealing with one of the worst winters in recent memory.
Exactly. Well, we were wondering, where did all our snow go? We found it. It's in southern Germany and parts of Austria. Let me show you. This is what it looked like earlier today. They've had one of the worst winters in a long time, and what's been happening here is they're trying to shovel out the railway so that people can get out into Bavaria. They're actually snowbound in Bavaria, and look at this. Look at all the snow on some of the roofs. It's very bad out there. They've actually had 24 people killed because of avalanches. Not all people are not all people that are in avalanches. Look at this. That's a goat. He finally got out of the way, but it's been so bad across Europe, even parts of Greece. That's snow on the beach at Greece. It has really been a bad winter in that area, and they'll continue to see more snow. They're expecting another 10 feet in southern Germany and also northern Austria, probably coming up in the next 2 or 3 days. We'll have our forecast much better than that in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, Billings has a lot of changes on the horizon, with the One Big Sky district, a bustling West End that continues to grow, and a crime rate that keeps our officers very busy. Recently, the Billings City Council welcomed a new city administrator. Chris Kukulski comes to us from Bozeman and tells Q2 News while he's still just trying to find his footing, he has a lot of excitement and ideas for the future of Billings.
It's been fantastic. I've just started in mid-November, and just been trying to soak in and absorb as much information as I can. My father worked at General Motors on the factory line, and I know how important jobs are. And so to me, One Big Sky is, instead of me coming in and trying to encourage people that we need to find a way to have this conversation, it was already happening before I got here. And I think we're presenting a plan that can not only be used for the business center of Montana here in Billings, but ultimately can help other communities in Montana grow their economy. And the opportunities really are diverse. And I think for us, how we serve all of our citizens is critically important. And so to me, we need 115,000 citizens of Billings to be engaged, paying attention, communicating with one another and with us to help all of us work together to improve the safety and security of our community. Mm-hmm. I'm excited because the community, I hear them saying, we understand that we need to step up our game in the quality of the built environment and in our parks and our trails and our amenities that make someone choose to stay or choose to relocate here. I just can't express enough my appreciation for the opportunity, and I'm just really excited about the future and the team of people we're getting to work with, both internally as well as out in the community, just to make Billings an even greater place.
And if you'd like to check out the full interview with Billings City Administrator Chris Kukulski, head to our website, ktvq.com.
All right, coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, human trafficking is a serious but oftentimes invisible problem. Now, new training is helping people identify possible victims.
And later in sports, plenty of college basketball. Scott shows us what happens with MSUB, Rocky, and your Cats and Grizz.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger, Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire, and sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.